Thank you. So before I start, I just want to say thank you to all for coming out. It's awesome to see so many faces. And thank you to Michael for encouraging me to do this, and to my Solidarity crew for coming out in solidarity to support me. And also to the PechaKucha crew and my girlfriend, Adrienne, as well. So, good to go. So hopefully this picture is not too familiar to you guys, but unfortunately it's more and more of a reality. We've got these little black screens in our pockets that we're staring into, and we're basically living in this attention battleground. Everyone's vying for our attention, telling us what to look at, when to look at it. It's a constant attention war ground. So a few years ago, I came across this article online by this journalist and educator, Rob Walker, and he teaches at the School of Visual Arts. And as one of his MFA classes, he asked his students to practice paying attention for 1 week, because he felt like practicing paying attention was what you needed to do to cultivate an original point of view. So over the years, his students came up with a lot of different techniques for paying attention. And what Rob Walker did in this article was he collected these different ways of paying attention and made a list of 20 of his favorites. And a few of these that really struck me, one was walk with an expert. And so this would be doing your daily walk to and from work or school, but with someone who's a botanist or a geologist. And they would point out different things along the way. Another was creating a sound map of your neighborhood where you'd record certain sounds and map them on Google. The one that really caught my eye was this one called Let a Stranger Lead You. And this was inspired by this artist Vito Acconci, who in 1969, for 4 weeks, would follow a different person around the streets of New York City each day at random. And as he was doing this, sometimes someone else would follow him with a camera and document this. So the rules for this were pretty simple. Here's a picture of one of those followings. Vito would follow these individuals, and he'd follow them until they went into some sort of private space where he couldn't go himself. So sometimes this only lasted a matter of 5 minutes when someone would hop into a taxi car and drive off. Other times it lasted on the order of 5 or 6 hours. Once he followed someone into a movie theater and had to watch the movie with them. So for Acconci, the whole purpose of this was getting outside of himself, putting the control of his own actions in someone else's hands. But I was really intrigued with this idea and thought that this would be a cool experiment to try for myself. But I realized pretty quickly that Burlington is not Brooklyn, and people would probably be freaked out by this. So I thought, what is a subject that I could follow that wouldn't mind it so much? This is Snicker, is a cat that I live with. And I thought, it'd be great to follow Snicker for 6 hours on a Saturday, but this is pretty much what he does for 6 hours on a Saturday. So I mustered up the courage, decided to go to the busiest place I knew of in Burlington, Church Street Marketplace. And I got up there and I made one ground rule for myself. I was going to try to lower the creepiness factor a little bit, and I was only going to follow men. So I found a man, and he's in this photo, but I'm not going to say who it is, and I followed him up and down Church Street. And one of the best things about following people is that you're led to these really interesting places. So I don't know if any of you know this. It's kind of an obscure shot of this place, but this is a game store that's on sort of the south side of Church Street Marketplace. I didn't even know that existed. And I may have come across it on Google at some point, but this was a much better way of finding out about it. So he led me here and then to the comic shop beneath. And then about 30 minutes later, we ended up on top of Marketplace Garage, where he got into a van, met up with some friends, and left. But I was left there with this beautiful view of the city, which I had never been on top of here before. I didn't even know that this view existed. So when I was doing this, I wanted a way to keep track of where I was going and how long I was following people. Acconci, when he did it, used maps, pen, paper, and a watch. I had the Strava app on my iPhone. So I could just put it in my pocket and leave it, and would record how long I was following. And it creates these really interesting kind of works of art in and of themselves. So that was an hour and 5 minutes of following. So I was sufficiently intrigued. The next day, I came back to Burlington, to downtown, and I went to the South End neighborhood. And in the Five Sisters area, there was a man with a backpack on and a ball cap, and he seemed like he was kind of going at it, and he was headed somewhere in particular. So I followed him through the winding streets, and we crossed the city park, which I've been to many times, but haven't actually walked through. And where did we end up? Well, as the saying goes, all roads in Burlington lead to Church Street Marketplace. So we ended up back at the marketplace, and this man ducked into a restaurant, ostensibly for lunch. And had I been Vito Acconci, I probably would have followed him and ordered the same meal. But it was such a beautiful day that I stayed outside and saw this man with this purple shirt kind of sauntering along the sidewalk. And I said, he looks like he's going somewhere interesting. I wonder where he's headed. It became evident pretty quickly that this guy was not from around here. And the reason being, he walked down to the waterfront. In that little tourist information booth that's there, he ducked in and talked to the man about all the various attractions in the area. And so I was obligated to duck in as well. And then he spent time at the boardwalk looking at all the different signs that are there, all those little maps and information, which as a resident, you usually don't read those things. But I had to take the time to be there and pay attention to all of this. So we ended up walking to this pause place that looks out over Texaco Beach and North Beach. Many of you are probably familiar with it. I bike there every day in front of it and back again, but I never had taken the time to actually hang out there for 15 minutes. And while I was there, I saw this couple having a champagne toast in the back of their boat. All these little nuances, these little moments that otherwise would go unnoticed. So after about 15 minutes there, we wandered back the exact same path back into town. And the man I was following ducked into the Burton store. I ducked in as well. And I think at that point, he may have been on to me because he quickly ducked out again. And then when I got out on the sidewalk, he was gone. So I got back home and I thought, you know what? I'm going to see if what I just did was really weird and unusual. I think I already knew the answer, but I posted this poll to a group of my friends on social media. I'm the only one who said yes. It may have changed by now. The point being that you don't have to follow someone to see something new and to pay attention. Kind of circling back to that first photo of the baby staring into the phone, wouldn't it be nice if we had more moments like this of awe and amazement? So I encourage you all to practice paying attention in any way you know how or can think of. Thanks so much.